Welcome back, guys, to the Beyond Condition podcast, where today I have a guest that I'm very, very excited to introduce because, of course, I'm going to have to give a bit of a backstory here, Mark. So Mark Oates, also known as Natural Oak on Instagram, he actually, well, we said, what do we call it? Presents or impairs or whatever we want to call it. You were presenting a show that I competed at in 2019. So that was Rhinos. And I really, really love the way that you could see you're passionate about our sport, but you also really engaged with the audience, which I'm always acutely aware as a competitor that, you know, of course, your family are there, and bikini in particular is always on right at the end. And they're sort of sitting in the crowd thinking, well, when's my daughter coming on, or when's my friend coming on? It can be a little bit, when it's not your world, maybe a bit daunting and a bit overwhelming. So I must thank you for that experience. And I'll always remember that day very, very fondly. But of course, for the listeners, probably best to start with a bit of backstory for you as a competitor and where you're at now, Mark.
Yeah, so my name is Mark Oates. I am 50 years of age. The reason why I mention that is just a bit of context. So my first show, I was 19. I've always competed drug-free, natural, in a variety of different natural federations. I've competed locally, nationally, and internationally. I have had a pro card in the past. I've won UK titles, overall UK titles, Amateur Worlds, and the pinnacle 2013 I won a pro world title. 2013 I retired from competing, having competed kind of every other year from when I was 19 up until 41. The reason why I mention that is sometimes people see the judges who, you know, some are in shape, some aren't in shape, and kind of have that what do you know kind of thing. So I have trod the boards. I do get it. That said, I don't think you have to be even a half decent athlete to be a fantastic judge. I think the two things are entirely different. In the same way as you can be a fantastic footballer and an awful coach. This, for me, is very much the same. I've judged equally from before I retired competing, but I tended to not judge in the years I was competing because I competed every other year. It enabled me to do that. And most of the federations that I've judged for are quite keen on that, and I think that's appropriate too, because you don't really want to be judging people who you ultimately might be facing in the finals. I've judged at small independent shows, large independent shows like the Rhino that you're talking about. I've judged natural qualifiers. I've judged at the UK and British and international events that we have here. I've also judged at the WNBF Worlds as head judge. I've judged at the PNBA Natural Olympia in Vegas last year, and I've judged at the PNBA INBA Worlds back in Budapest. So I've judged at all different levels. One thing just mention, I guess, as well, is you've mentioned there about engaging with the audience. Now, my personal belief is on that show there that you're talking about, I did end up on the microphone and judging. And that does occasionally. I have had the mic on more than one occasion, often abroad. But I think oftentimes what works better and what we tend to do in the UKDFBA is we all focus on one job. So I'm the head judge for the UKDFBA and vice president. And then the president of the UKDFBA, a gentleman called Lee Kemp, who's well known within the sport. What we normally do, assuming we have enough judges, is he will be on the mic. He will compare and he will do the engagement with the audience, as you've mentioned, and with the athletes, which is really important. And as a good compare, he is a bit of a stato and knows all the kind of records of everybody, where they've competed and everything. And he introduces people in that kind of way. And then that allows me as head judge to just be focusing on the judging. It's not to say you can't do more than one thing, but it allows you to focus on just the one thing. I think what many athletes don't realise, and definitely people in the audience don't realise, is sitting on that table's hard. You're there normally from, people think 9 o'clock in the morning when the show starts, or 10 o'clock in the morning. That's normally not true. You normally get there like 7 in the morning and set the stuff up. It's not like the judges come in to a red carpet and you know, the judges are hands-on getting involved. The judges are all not paid, passionate about the sport, love the federation for whom they're judging, and they will be there, you know, at the beginning of the event, setting things up, and normally after the event, tidying stuff away. So judging as well, it's a tough gig, it's a hard day, but it's interesting that I, in many ways, never work as hard for free anywhere else. So
Yeah,
it's
isn't
something
it?
that you're really passionate about. I wish I could be paid for it because, you know, you work really hard and the day goes.
Yeah.
Does that kind of give you a flavour of why I'm sat in this chair in front of you today?
Yeah, for sure. Like it's after that, or around that time, I actually heard you on a podcast with AJ, and I was like, oh yeah, you know, you are the type of person that I feel should almost front the sport, and it's what I got into the sport for, a passion for wanting to, you know, push myself out of my comfort zone, do something that was completely away from the norm. And of course, you know, people do it for a mixture of reasons, but you being a competitor first, that obviously in my mind, I was like, this is cool, you know, and then to follow that journey that you've been on is really inspirational for athletes and for myself. And but like you say, you know, you don't have to be a competitor before you judge, because it may be that you do still have a passion for it, but you don't want to compete per se.
It's true. And I mean, just to, I guess, really underline the point is, in my opinion, what we find now is a lot of people compete quite quickly. And so
Yeah.
what I mean by that is you start training and then you'll often hear, I want to be a pro next year. And I'm like, how is that a thing? Like, if I've never played basketball, bad example because I'm 5'7", but like if I go down the gym and start playing basketball today, I'm probably not going to expect to be playing for my country next week.
Yeah.
But people, and bodybuilding is not the same, but people's aspiration is to be at that elite level the following year. And an aspiration, you know, is a good thing. However, what it often means is people come into the sport and all they know of the athletes and the people at the top are the people who are at the top that year. And almost every year and it's not to give it the big I am or I was, it's oftentimes to just give people the context of I have been there, is I'll post a little bit. I don't do massive amounts with social media, but I'll post a little bit around, here's a photo taken of me 10 years ago. Here's, you know, because I get it quite often that people will come to shows or conversations down the gym. I didn't know you competed. Did you used to compete? I'm like, yeah. Were you good at it? I'm like, yeah, I was all right.
Not bad.
Not bad. Because you don't want to be like, don't you know who I am?
I'm the same. Yeah, it's hard,
no
isn't
one
it?
knows who you are. People are quite blinkered to it, especially with the diversity of classes that we now see.
Wow,
So
yeah.
I'll focus on the men, being a bloke, identifying as a man today. You know, the physique guys often don't really have much concept of the bodybuilding guys and who is good today and who was good in yesteryear, and vice versa. You know, it's different. Perhaps if you're a judge, you get a little bit more of a sense of it in terms of the people in front of you, but there's often not that appreciation of the heritage that's gone before you. Added to which, there's so many federations. You know, and you may well find that you're judging. So when I judged at the Rhinos, that was for the Swans. They're friends of mine, and you know, Nick asked if I would do it, and there was a couple of others friends and the rest of it. Happy to do it. But then you find yourself in the mix of people who don't even really associate with like the natural federation that I've been to. So they're like, we have no idea who you are.
Yeah.
And they don't need to. But there is that. Sometimes I think that even the people who are there being judged have no idea who the judges are in terms of their competitive pedigree, if they have one.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, at Rhinos, like you touched on there, it's an untested show. So, I mean, that again is something that people can be fairly naive to in regards to when you first start competing. You maybe don't even know that you're going to be against untested athletes. If you're just entering a show and you think, oh, I'm going to do bodybuilding, like you say, I've done a year of weight training, I'll jump into a show. But now, you know, the sport is so competitive in untested and tested federations, of course.
Yeah, bringing it back, I guess, slightly to where I think we want to get to today is in terms of judging. It makes no difference. You need to judge the people who are in front of you. So if I'm judging in an untested federation, what I need to know is what are the criteria, which for bodybuilding is normally pretty straightforward, and for physique is normally pretty straightforward and fairly similar federation to federation. But for the women's side of the sport, it is a bit more of a minefield. So if I'm going to the Rhinos Classic, or if I'm judging at the PMBA, or if I was judging at the UKDFBA, or if I was judging at NABA or whatever, I would need to understand what the criteria are before I go. Because you would find that somebody who's a bikini athlete that places really well with one federation in another federation actually should be a figure, or in one federation could be fit body, and then they could come to another federation to find that actually that doesn't exist as a name, and they're in a class that's called Miss Athletic, or you know, I'm physique. So it's a proper minefield.
Yeah.
But as a judge, though, it makes no difference, because what you need to understand is the criteria, and then go and judge to that criteria. And it doesn't matter whether somebody is clean or not. If it is a tested federation, my job isn't to decide whether somebody looks like they are or they aren't. Well, actually, that's not quite true. My job isn't to judge it. So if I, in terms of you are or you aren't, my job is to say, I think that person looks like they may have taken something in the past, and flag it, and we will then test them. But I judge the physique, the figure, whatever, the shape that I see. And if I'm judging at a non-tested show, it's the same. Know the criteria for the women, know the criteria for the men. And then when I say judge them, it's really just a forced ranking exercise. So as a judge, you don't go, oh, you know, Sarah's an 8 out of 10 for this class, or a 9 out of 10. I just go, she's the best on the stage, or the second best on the stage, or the third best. That's forced ranking. That is how we judge. I think sometimes people in the audience don't realize that. I'm not sure they necessarily know what happens. We can touch on that whenever you want to.
No, yeah, I mean, I think that's a really useful thing to touch on now, actually, Mark.
Okay, so as a judge, my job is to forced rank everybody. And I'll come back to why I really use the term force as well. What you have to do is, if there's 10 athletes on the stage, I need to decide who's first, who's second, who's third, who's fourth, who's fifth. And it depends on the federation. In some federations, all the way down to 10th place. And I need to rank them in that way, being cognizant of what the criteria are for the class. So the person who most closely meets the criteria is first, you know, clearly.
Yeah.
The reason why I say forced rank is there are occasions, and again, this is more common, I think, in the female classes, where I'll look at the bikini class, for example, and I look at it and go, right, who is the person who most closely meets the criteria here? And the answer's nobody. So you can end up with, you know, half a dozen athletes on the stage. It happens more in the smaller numbers, yeah? So if let's say you've got a class of 6, they could all come on and none of them look like bikini. For that federation, they're all, you know, the federation that we're talking, you know, for this hypothetical federation, they're all too muscular, too lean, whatever, for bikini. But you can't, as a judge, say nobody wins. They all come last. You have to force rank it. And where that creates real problems in the sport is people will go, right, well, you know, Jane Smith, you put her first in that federation and look how muscular she was. So I need to look like that. And you're like, well, no, I put Jane Smith there because, you know, Florence Brown was even worse. It's not worse, even further away from the criteria. So it is sometimes really hard because you do end up in this position where nobody fits the criteria. The assumption that that's not the case, which in the blokes is less often the case, and the women, they do get it right. You force rank everybody first to last, or first to sixth, or whatever you've got. What then happens is the scorecards get passed down at the end of the judging. They get passed down to somebody who adds them up. However, what we do to add them up, commonly you would have 5 judges on a table. Sometimes you'll see events where you have 7, but you tend to always have an odd number. So let's work on an example where you have 5. The 5 scorecards get passed down. And then what you do is you basically go athlete number 1, and you list all the 5 scores that they've got from each of the judges. Athlete number 2, they could have gone a first, the second, first, and third from the judges. So you do that on a grid. What you then do is for each athlete, so for athlete number 1, you knock off their top score and their bottom score. So the highest score and the bottom score don't count. And the thinking behind that is it takes away outliers in terms of the judging. So, you know, if more or less everybody's got, you know, just this is a tough gig, sir, but let's just imagine you've come third. Okay, instead of first. Let's say most of the judges, 3 of the judges have got you down as third, but 1 had you as first and 1 had you as fifth. You would lose the first and you would lose the fifth. And then what we do is we add up the remaining 3 scores. So your 3, your 6, your 9. So you'd have 9 at the end. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then it is the person with the lowest score who wins. Okay. So the best you can do in a panel of 5 is have a score of 3, because you'd have got 1, 1, 1, 1, and 1 probably. You lose the top and the bottom, and you've got 3 ones that are left. In the event of a tie, doesn't happen often, but it does happen. In the event of a tie, it's the head judge's decision. And when we say decision, you go back to the score that he or she put down in the first place. They don't then think about it again. It's, well, you know, I put this person as second and I put this person as third, so that's the person that is coming second. And in a nutshell, that's how it happens.
Is it harder when there is 7 of you, or I guess it's the same principle, but being more because there's 5 instead of 3?
No. The only thing is it takes a fraction longer to add it up, because the person who's adding it up's got 7 scores and they have to knock off 2. In all honesty, if the judging panel are experienced and good, I think 7 is a waste of time, because you
Quite a lot.
Yeah, well, and you should find that there will be variance. Yeah, not any panel agrees 100% of all the scores all the time. It's never a thing, which is why we have a panel. If it was always the same, you'd just have one person. So you always have a panel. But in a good and experienced panel, to just keep having more and more judges, you're just basically adding the same more and more time. You know, if everyone's got 3s and 2s, 2s and 3s for a particular athlete, just having a few more 2s and 3s doesn't help. Because the flip side is, as an athlete, having been on that side, what you want is the result to be accurate, but you also don't want to have to wait hours for it. Depends how the shows run. You know, so some shows will have, you know, class, you know, like the figure girls on, and then whilst the figure girls scores are being added, they might have the bikini girls on, and then some do it like that. But oftentimes, as we know, you'll have the figure girls on, and whilst they're doing whatever, the I walk, their T walk, or whatever it is that they're doing, somebody's adding up the numbers. And what you want is that when you're then lined up at the back of the stage waiting for that, you know, that moment to find out who's won, you want it to be that they're ready, not that they're going, oh crap, make them walk about some more. You know, I mean, I've been in that position as well on the mic, you know, or I've been, you know, next, to be fair, it doesn't really happen in the UKDFBA because we have these 5 and everybody's experienced, but I have been on the mic abroad where it's like things have gone wrong and you're like, so what are we going to do now to fill time? And you know, it can be entertaining, but it's not the professional thing that you want. So you want to be able to judge accurately, fairly, and when I say quickly, I mean it in an appropriate pace, so the athletes aren't left loitering, and also so that the show doesn't finish at 3 o'clock in the morning.
This is what, straight away in my mind, it's like I've been told I'm going to be on at 3, 4 o'clock, and obviously you time your day with your coach to peak and everything else, and then I've not been on until sort of 9:30, 10 o'clock, and then you know your family are in the audience, they're like, how long are you going to be? And now when I compete, I say, just look out the whole day, we may be there till midnight.
And you know, as an athlete as well, and as an official, but really as an athlete, 9 times out of 10, you want to go and get some food afterwards, and you don't want it to be food that you've had minging in a Tupperware box all day. You want to go somewhere else, which, you know, we were in Vegas last year with the Natural Olympia, the PNBA. Yeah, that's open 24/7. But if you're competing in Manchester or Burnley or other place in the UK, things are shut by then.
For sure.
So
like,
you want it to finish at a sensible, reasonable time. It's not about getting it done quickly. Everyone's there because they want to be there. You know, judges, athletes, family, everybody wants to be there, but no one wants to be there at midnight.
And like you say, you know, with the food after, something I always talk about on the pod is, you know, after your show, if you can go for like a nice meal that's a bit different from what you've been able to have, and sit down with your family and reminisce on your, you know, achievement, whatever it's taken to get there, you know, that sort of gets removed if you're suddenly in a 24-hour drive through McDonald's and it's like, oh god, what am I gonna have? I
mean, I've done that, you know, where you've ended up at the motorway services eating a McDonald's just because you can. You don't really want to.
For sure. And when you were
You know,
talking
by the way,
about,
if McDonald's want to sponsor me for something, yeah, I'm sure I'll be open to that. But
we can have them at Flurries. When you were talking about sort of judging and the athletes finding out where they've placed and what have you, some shows it does vary, doesn't it? Sometimes you're on stage and you get your result there and then. Others you have like a pre-judging round and then you come later on. I mean, different federations do it different ways, don't they?
yeah, they do. Well, yeah, the short answer, yes. The longer answer is I haven't been to a show for a long time where there was a pre-judging and an evening.
Yeah.
Inverted commas, back in the day, like I say, I competed when I was 19, so that's like 30 odd years
A few
ago.
years ago.
Yeah, let's just say a few years ago.
Yeah.
That was the norm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So pre-judging used to start, I don't even remember, 10, 11 o'clock, something like that in the morning, and then the evening show. And basically the pre-judging was rounds 1 and 2, so quarter turns and mandatories.
Yeah.
An evening show was normally, come on, see everybody off, posing routine, results. Most show, in fact, it's a long time since I've been to any show that's not been straight through, all in one go.
Yeah.
As an athlete, massively prefer the straight through for a number of
100%.
reasons. It's also cheaper. People
Yeah.
go, "Oh, it's cheaper." Well, you don't have to use 2 lots of tan for starters,
Yeah.
you know. And that's just a small thing, but you know, whether it be instant tan, or which I realize is banned in most places now, but or whether you've got to put new glaze on, whether you just getting revved up again twice and trying to be in your best shape, and you know, it is really hard, even at the pro level. And the reason why I say at the pro level isn't because this is a thing to do with how good you are, it's often how much experience you've got. It's very hard to compete on stage and not at least get a bit of tan on your costume.
Yes.
Yeah. If you've got to come back, if you're on all in one go, that's kind of okay, but no one wants to put on a slightly grubby costume to come back on in the evening. So would you have 2 costumes? Well, you know, as a bloke, that's not a massive financial expense. As a lady, that's a financial expense that you don't need. So there's all of that. There's the expense thing. There's also as an athlete, basically you are hanging around for the entire day, because you could be on at 11 o'clock in the morning, and then you will have to hang around while everybody else does their thing, and then you will come back again at 5.
Yeah.
The eating thing becomes a challenge.
Yeah, for sure.
Most of the shows lasted a lot longer. And it was back in the day when there were less classes, because there was basically men's bodybuilding, whatever, split by height or weight, couple of age classes, women's bodybuilding, and we all went home.
Yeah.
And then figure got introduced, and then we end up not in the state, I don't mean that, we end up in the position we're in now, where, you know, that's not even half the classes that you see. So yeah, I don't know if anybody does. I haven't been to a show in a long old while. To be fair, I don't go to shows to watch that much, but people who compete that I'm aware of, does anybody do morning and evening anymore?
When I judged for WMBF, they did it. This was a couple of years ago now, but I don't know if I don't judge for them anymore. I don't know if that's still the case, but that was the first time I'd actually seen the sort of split, and I was like, oh, this is almost new to me. And yeah, like you say, you know, as an athlete as well, you want to know.
Yeah, where I have actually, to be fair, where I have seen split shows still going on is, and this is a bit cheeky from whoever from the running, is where they know they haven't got enough athletes, because then it makes a show last a little bit longer and feel like there's a bit more going on. So it does make the day last longer. So sometimes you'll find that the shows, you know, independent or federations, whatever, they'll run a morning and evening if they haven't quite got enough athletes to make the show. If you've got a show that's got 120, 130 athletes spread over classes, you've got to be efficient with your time. And that's the word to use. It's not about being quick. It's about being efficient with the time. Like I say, judging everybody fairly, professionally, and giving them the results that are correct in a timely manner. And a split show doesn't enable you to do that any better. I would argue worse, because then you have this, do people look the same and different, and
everyone flying around
and all of that. So yeah, that's my view on that.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, it can be, you know, like you say, if there is a small pool of athletes, then it would be a way to sort of elongate the show, as it were. But it's hard, you know, imagining that and competing and thinking, oh my God, I don't know what my result is. Do I eat? Do I drink? And then you start, you know, you've got potentially stress, which obviously, as we know, affects the physique as well.
Well, on the flip side, there's a health challenge,
yeah,
you know, because you will, even whatever way of approaching a stage you're doing, yeah, especially if it's like you've done a couple of shows, if this is like your final show of the year and it's all on the money, yeah, you're probably a bit run down, you're probably possibly dehydrated, depending on how you've got yourself to the stage, all the rest of it. You need to basically compete and then start repairing your body.
Yeah.
And to stretch that out across a whole day, it can be a health challenge to people, you know.
Yeah.
And let's not do that. You know, people push themselves, and this isn't a veiled criticism of whatever supplement regime, yeah, whether you're clean or not clean or whatever, you are putting your body through a lot to get on a bodybuilding stage. Making that I was going to say ordeal, making that experience last the whole day is putting your body under an unnecessary stress.
Yeah, because I talk about it on the podcast in regards to bodybuilding isn't necessarily a healthy sport in inverted commas.
No.
It is an extreme sport, and I come across people from all walks of life that say, I'd love to challenge myself and jump on a stage, a bit like what we touched on right at the start of the pod, and it's like, you could challenge yourself with something, so it's still going to be a challenge, but I wouldn't say that a bodybuilding prep is something that you'd ordinarily just go, I'll jump in and give it a go,
Yeah, no, I agree. And I try not to engage too much in the conversation, but I've heard people say, oh, well, why did I lost 3 stone, why am I here, why haven't I placed higher? And I'm like, well, in my head, I'm like, because it's not Weight Watchers.
Yeah, it's true, though.
I applaud you for losing 3 stone. I recognize that is a challenge. I mean, the fact that you've had 3 stone to lose means you've made whatever choices to get to 3 stone that you can lose. And then you've made some health choices, hopefully, to lose that 3 stone. But that's not what bodybuilding is. It's not a he or she who loses the most weight wins. That's a different thing. But sometimes that's a frustration for people. They're like, I've lost so much weight, I've worked so hard to lose this weight, I should place higher in this bodybuilding competition. Again, that's not the thing.
Yeah, and of course, there is a massive onus on judging being set to the criteria, of course, but it is still a subjective sport as well. So that's why, you do have the panel of judges and you have experienced judges there, but someone's got to win, and it could be a very close call. There could be 1 point between it. I've had that before myself, and it's like, the person, I beat them by 1 point and they threw the toys out the pram and everything else. I should have won this. For me, that's not what the sport of bodybuilding is. I want to go in, I want to know I've done my best. And, if someone beats me, they beat me. If I can look at them objectively and go, okay, I can see why, then it's, you go, okay, congratulations, because you've got to show some sportsmanship, I believe.
I agree. And there should be more of it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
It's unfortunate. The thing, the thing that does make me kind of chuckle is, for many people, actually not for many people, for some people, the aspiration of the pro card, whatever that means, is a
the
draw,
elusive pro card.
Yeah, which, we can probably all name about half a dozen people on the planet who make money out of being a pro physique bodybuilder, whatever. Yeah. And the rest of the pros don't. Yeah. I was a pro and I had a great time and always covered my expenses for the hobby that I really, really enjoy. I traveled to compete. I made some great friends. I met my wife through the sport. I got a lot out of it, but I didn't make any money. But the reason why I mention it is, if you are a pro, I think you should, or an amateur, but especially as a pro, you should carry yourself as somebody who represents the sport. Many pros, or some pros, also, I believe, are sponsored or associated with a brand. Yeah. So for many years, I was sponsored by Reflex. I was also sponsored by BioCare. And I still get discounts from them. But when I was, up Reflex. But, at the time when I was competing, I really felt that I was representing the brand who are helping me, and it's not just about getting free supplements, which is, I think, what some people believe it should be.
Yeah.
What are you going to do for it? And, I felt like probably everybody, I think there's 2 shows in my life that I really think I got the wrong end of the rub. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's others that I lost. There's others that I lost. And you look at it and go, that could have gone either way. I get it. Or, tough one, but whatever. But there's 2 shows in my life that I actually think, even looking at the video, I'm like, what were they on?
Yep. Yep.
At the time on the stage, I was like disappointed, but I am, for myself, my own pride in my own self, I need to carry myself in a certain way. If it were one of the occasions was abroad, so I'm representing myself and the UK team. So, you know, do we really want the UK to be seen as that nation? And I'm representing the brand who are kind enough to sponsor me or work with me or whatever it looks like. You know, if you're a pro who earns part of their income through the industry, they've got coaching business or posing or whatever, I feel like you should be setting a better example for the people who you want as clients.
Yeah.
So that there's a lot of reasons for why. I don't deny or discourage people from having passion. I think there's a different thing. And I'm not sad when I see people who are disappointed. You know, I'm sad for them. I can see that they're passionate, they want to win, you know, and I'm that, but I like that they want it that much. I like that they're taking it that seriously and that they're that competitive. Yeah, because at the end of the day, if you're on stage, it's a competition, you know. This is my personal belief. Yeah,
same.
I hear all the time, I just want to be the best I can be. I was a bit like, nah, I want to win. Yeah, because it's a competition. Yeah, and I believed that I had to be the best I could be to win, because especially as you compete up levels and up levels, everybody else is great. And you know, if you bring your previous best package, you won't place. But I wanted to win.
Yeah.
I like it when other people are the same.
I think as well, you know, once you've won a show, I found this transition. The first show I won, there's no feeling quite like it. And it was like, oh, I want that again. And then actually, what was probably on reflection very good for me is the following show that I did 3 weeks later, I came second. But what actually happened at that show was the person that won, I went, okay, hats off. She's got, you know, more of the matching to the criteria, and I've still got a long way to go. And then I won again the following show, and it's almost like this balance. But it also made me, I'm sure you can relate, when I came second at the following show, I've got to work to win, and it fueled that fire even more to go, you've got to put this work in if you want to keep, you know, doing well at shows. But yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because when you do start winning, you just want to keep winning.
Yeah, but and you've touched on something there that in terms of the work, yeah. So there's the work away, there's the work that we all have to do to get on stage, yeah. But as a judge, so bringing it back to this, you know, judging and what do judges look for and how are we ranking people? It's to the criteria, it's force ranking, as I've mentioned. Sometimes though, oftentimes it's still hard. You go, right, are you second or are you third? Or are you third and you second? And you've got to tease it apart. And you tease it apart sometimes pose by pose. There's been competitions I'm in where I'm literally putting a tick just on a note of a scrap bit of paper, right? Front double biceps, he got it. Rear double biceps, he got it as well. Front lat spread, the other one got it. And then I'm like, right, okay, look, there's 7 poses. How did that work?
Honestly, yeah.
But if you are competitive on stage, yeah, if you really want to win, you can sometimes see it. And that person oftentimes is working that bit harder. And that shows itself in your physique or your figure because you're posing that bit harder. You're working between the poses. And, you know, it's not about transitions in the mandatories. Yeah, it's nice to see, but it's not essential to see. But if everything else, if all the scores are tied, if everything's going down to the wire, every bit helps. You know, the person who wants it and is working really hard, they're really competitive. And even when they're stood at the back, they're working. They're not posing in a district, because that annoys me as a judge. If somebody at the back is, you know, basically, I've seen it before where, you know, the people who are on the comparison line are being told, you know, front double biceps, rear lat spread, and the person who's at the back is doing the same. I'm just like, that annoys me.
I know what you mean.
Just stop, stand still, stop. But I would encourage the people who are stood at the back to be in their front relaxed stance, but not relaxed. We know that front relaxed is a misnomer, but on it. Because there will be occasions where I'll look up and I'm, you know, my head scratching about 5th and 6th or 2nd and 3rd or 1st or whatever. And they might not be the people who are out at the front. Or I've got 1st to 5 out the front and I'm maybe not sure about 4th and 5th. And I'm like, well, what about, you know, that guy or that girl that was at the back? And you have a quick look and something catches your eye because they're being competitive. And you're like, yeah, I need to get them into the mix here. So this being competitive isn't about it isn't about the pose down and pushing people out of the way and just being a mentalist.
Yeah.
But it's about working hard from the minute the judges can see you until the minute they can't, and everything in between. You know, transitions are important, if not essential, because you're not judging them, but they're important. That stood at the back time is important, and clearly those however many poses you've got in the discipline that you're in, whether it's 1, 2, 5, 7, whatever, each of those poses is essential. But you need to compete in every pose, your best poses and your worst poses. And I know I've been on the receiving end of a win before, because because you know, the judges have basically said to me afterwards, and it wasn't I was asking for feedback because I don't believe in that, but the judges said to me afterwards, you wanted it, you were posing so hard and it just looked like you got better and better and better. And we all wanted it at the time, but that being competitive, I think, is the right thing.
Yeah, you've touched on two really good things there, actually. It's something I talk to people about, especially get a lot of first timers listen to the podcast, and they reach out and we engage in conversation. And when I talk to them about, when you first go on stage, it's almost like, and I'm sure you'll have some memories of, when you were competing, when I think back to it, and when you come from behind stage, past that curtain or past whatever it's going to be, suddenly you're this new person. It's teeth, it's smiles, it's enjoying the stage. And I say to people, you've worked for 4, 5, 6, 7+ months for 10 minutes on stage. Try and look like you enjoy it, because from a judging standpoint also, you look up and you're engaged, you see that, like you're talking about, you see the mentality of someone wanting to win but also enjoy that time on stage. And I think there's many contributors to people maybe not enjoying the stage. It could be down to confidence, if it is the first time, maybe posing, fitness, which is the second thing that's very relevant. Also, a lot of people are so focused on getting the prep out the way that they're on stage and all they want to do is finish, have a meal and go to bed. But I always say backstage, please remember what you've done to get here. Embrace your 10 minutes.
I mean, what kind of mental person, not mental, I shouldn't use that term.
It's true though.
If you're not enjoying it and you're not getting paid for it, because many people have jobs that they don't enjoy and they get paid for it. So you kind of that you go, all right, I've got to pay the mortgage.
For sure.
This is a hobby. Yeah. And there's health benefits to losing weight if you're obese and all of that. But there's very few health benefits to, like we've said, prepping for a bodybuilding show. Yeah. Figure, physique, whatever the discipline, there's very few health benefits for especially when you get good at it and you end up super lean. If that's the discipline that's required, obviously that's the caveat. Sure. There's very few benefits to it. So given the sacrifices that you make, if you're not going to enjoy it, and it might be like your first show, you're entirely right, because you might think you're going to enjoy it, try it and go, you know what, this isn't for me. I'll do something else. I love training, but this isn't for me. But if you're not going to enjoy it, it is a weird thing to do on a Sunday or a Saturday.
I slight caveats as well to this sort of. I always say it is, for me, I stand by the merit of this is a choice. I've decided to do this to myself, as it were. I've decided to, like you say, almost sacrifice social occasions, all the things that go into prep, and put my life on hold per se for 6, 8 months. That's my choice. And then you do get people say, yeah, but it is hard. And yes, it is hard. And I will air that sometimes to my partner or what have you, but I don't like to, moan about it because I've decided to do it. But there's a conflict there slightly, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, that's away from the judging, that's into the competing side, but I 100% agree. So when I was competing, it's not sacrificing because it's a choice.
This is what I say. Yeah.
It's an absolute choice. So if you don't want to do it, then don't.
Just eat the food and stop doing it.
and the moaning thing is interesting because I do genuinely, and this was an evolution as I competed from when I was younger to when I was older. It wasn't to do with age. When I was younger and first started competing, probably the first half of my competitive career, there was definitely this notion that when you diet, you'll be grumpy and you'll be in a bad mood and all the rest of it. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So, because I want to know that I'm working hard because I need to do that to be on stage. People who work hard are grumpy. So I've heard. So I'll be grumpy. And there's a reputation that stuck with me for years that Mark's grumpy when he diets.
Yeah.
But I genuinely feel it was unfair in the back half of when I competed, or the back third. you know, I took CLA towards the back time, and I definitely feel that that helps just kind of level your, not your mood so much, well, maybe your mood a little bit, but just like your cognitive capability.
Functions, yeah.
But like most things, if you make the choice that I don't want to be grumpy, yeah, or your partner says something that perhaps maybe you feel like it's going to grate because you are tired and run down, but if you make the choice to just take a breath and have a think, then you won't be these people who you hear about who, oh, I can't hold down a relationship if I'm on prep, as they call it.
Don't talk to me.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's a choice. So yeah, if you want to make the choice to live on your own and be grumpy and diet, then do that. But if you want to make the choice to share these challenges with the people around you, because it is a challenge, you know, doing that cardio, you know, when you're tired, when you're depleted, you know, drinking gallons of water or not drinking gallons of water, whatever you're doing, these are challenges. It's not an easy gig, but it is a personal choice. But then when people come to the judges and say, well, I had to do all of this stuff and you don't get it and all the rest of it. Well, firstly, I do get it because I've done it. But secondly, as a judge, with the greatest of respect, I don't care. I absolutely don't care. What I want to know is, what do you look like? Are you close to the criteria? And if you are bang on with the criteria, are you more the criteria than the person I am going to force rank into second place, third place, fourth place? And with the greatest of respect as a judge, that's my job. It's not to say to you, well, you needed to lift heavier, or you needed to lift lighter, or you needed to diet for longer, or more water or less water. And people expect you to be able to know that. Firstly, I don't know that because I haven't been with you for the last 4, 5, 6, 7 months. I don't know what you've done to get to this stage. And secondly, my job is to judge. It's not to tell you what you need to manipulate in terms of training or diet or the rest of it, because I don't know. If I'd been training with you for the last 6 months, I could have a stab at it. But that's not the judge's job. The judge's job is to be impartial, to force rank, and to do their absolute damnedest to not get it wrong. And I say their absolute damnedest. Judges are human and they make mistakes. And that's why there's a panel of 5. So that when you do have you're just an absolute brain fart, and you know, I like to think I'm a good judge, but I've still done it where I've put somebody third and then they've ultimately won, and I'm like, how did that happen? And then when they come out and look at it, and I look at it again, I go, shit, yeah, what were you looking at, Oaks? You know, and that is why you have 5. You know, and that is my job as a judge, and then to leave. You know,
extremely relevant points there, Mark, because I actually mentioned this a few weeks ago on the pod. You know, when you're judging, you're not looking up the stage and going, that person's just got divorced, that person's moved house. And I gave this example because, you know, when you compete, certainly for me in the first few seasons, I was very naive to what bodybuilding even was, and it was quite a shell shock to be judged anyway. But I thought, what I've done to get to this stage, I don't even feel like they've looked at me. What's happening? And I thought, is this sport for me? Am I doing the right thing? But the judge's job is to sit there and just look at the physiques. You know, it's not about what you potentially sacrifice or what you've done to get there. That's not their job. And I think sometimes you can get very, in a prep, you have a mixture of thoughts and feelings, shall we say, and you can get almost quite caught up on what you've had to do to get there, and that maybe earns you the right to place or, you know, win even, and that's not the case, unfortunately.
You know, I mean, one of the things I really enjoy about judging, about judging for the UKDFBA, about being vice president for the UKDFBA and all of that is, and I try my absolute best to make this happen, is that when we check the athletes in, most of them are really polite and make this big long line and they're queuing out the door and all the rest of it, is to try and get them all into the room and just have a few words at the beginning, you know, thank them for competing, for choosing to this particular show, this, you know, federation, all of that. And to have a look around, see how many people are there, you know, how many people for whom is this their first ever show. You know, we may have pros in the room. We'll probably perhaps have in the room whoever's going to win the overall. Have that kind of debate, discussion, flag it, you know. But it's also to just highlight to people, everybody in this room has been like center of the universe, their universe, for the last 4 or 5 months. All of you. You know,
it's so
and
true,
everybody's
isn't it?
partner in here probably is, you know, had enough of hearing about
on edge.
you know. But everybody is in that boat. You know, there are very few athletes who can turn up on stage having not changed something during their prep phase. Do you know what I mean? Like, nobody lives like a prepping athlete, or almost nobody, 24/7, 365. Yeah, they just don't. So they've all had to do something that's a change to get stage ready. So they've all earned that right to be on stage, you know, but you earn the right to win it by being the best on stage, the person who most closely fits the criteria. And the forced ranking thing, I've mentioned that, but the challenge it creates is a little bit, and people need to sometimes remember this, is if you win the Southeast qualifier, whatever, you're the best person on that day in the criteria. You could go and compete, not even at the final, at another qualifier and come fourth. And basically it's because the Southern qualifier or whatever, just people weren't as good.
You know?
And equally, you can win and think you're walking on water. And this often, I think this especially can happen with the female classes as well, where you could be the only one on the stage who is close to matching the criteria. And then you come to a different day, same federation, different day, but people have just got it a bit more right. And now you're being judged in the mix of people who are the criteria. So you can go from hero to zero and vice versa, because it's not an individual sport. Like if it was an individual sport, sorry, it's not an objective sport. So if it was a 100-meter run and I do 10 seconds, then I know if I do 9.5, I'm better. I've still got to beat the other people, but I know if I'm personally better or worse from that. And then if I'm doing, 9.1, or I can know. But when I'm force ranked, I can be first or fifth or ninth, but looking exactly the same. It's just the people around me who change, and this is why you can have people who breeze through a qualifier, close run, win a UK title, take a pro card, and then get absolutely demolished. And it's because the people around them have got that bit better. They're still just as good. They're still chasing the same criteria, but the standards change. So, and what I mean by the standard is the closest to the criteria. So if it's bodybuilding and it's basically about being big and hard, you can argue about whether you're too conditioned, all the rest of it. Let's not, but basically big and hard. So if you are then on stage against people who are bigger and or harder, you'll lose. That's, yes, proportion, symmetry. I'm not diminishing anything, but that's what happens. It's forced ranking. And people, I've heard sometimes from people, I'm not a big fan of giving feedback. Because I haven't got the time. There's 130 athletes. I can't barely remember the people who've just left the stage, much less 5 hours later, somebody who's got clothes on, got rid of their tan.
Who are you?
I'm like,
I'm number 10.
Class were you in? I'm like, I just don't know. But sometimes I've heard people who are the winner. What feedback can I have? And I'm like, what do you want feedback for? What can do better? And my inner voice is saying, you just need to hope no one better comes, because you've won today and you should enjoy that, because I think you were lucky. Not you got a lucky result.
Like
just
best of the bunch,
class was quite weak. What are you going to do at the final? I think you're going to lose. Do you know what I mean? And those are
being realistic.
And that's being, and I wouldn't say that to people. I know sometimes people think, oh, he's a bit blunt and all the rest of it.
It's how it is, isn't it?
I wouldn't. Yeah, that is how it is. I wouldn't say that to people, just to be clear. But it's worth people just reflecting. This is a forced ranking exercise. Look at the criteria. Can I share with you another pet hate I have as a judge?
Yes, please.
Whilst I've got the mic, is when people turn up and say, I don't know what the judges are looking for. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. If you were going to play football, you'd know the rules. If you were going to watch a gymnastics competition, so with, a sport that is more subjective, you'd know what the judges are looking for, if you're in that world. I don't pretend to be a gymnast, but like, if you're a gymnastics coach, you know what they're looking for. If you're a judge at gymnastics, you know what you're looking for. If you're a gymnast, you know what they're looking for. And they know what they're looking for because they've looked at the rules. They've looked at the criteria.
And they've learned it.
And they've learned it and worked it out. So when people turn up sometimes I'm fully aware that people who then go, well, I don't know what the judge is looking for, have not gone on to the federation's website, whether it be the UKDFBA or someone else. They haven't gone onto the website where, I can't 100% say this, but I'll go on record. I believe all federations publish on their website the rules.
Most of, yeah,
most, if not all,
yeah.
And within that somewhere will be the criteria so that you can understand what bodybuilding is, what physique is, what figure is, what bikini is, whatever. That's what the judges are looking for. Okay, so that's the first thing. If you don't know that, you've not got a hope in hell of preparing.
Especially with diet brain.
Especially with diet brain, especially in the women's class. Where if you're physique in Federation A, that could be really like being bodybuilding in Federation B. Look at it. Another good way of understanding what are the judges looking for, and this isn't completely foolproof, to be honest, and I'll explain why, is to look at results elsewhere. You know, social media, for all of its downsides, has got pluses, which is that it's quite hard to not find photos of people competing, especially winners. So have a look at the photos. The reason why I say it's not foolproof is, like I say, it's forced ranking. So if nobody matches the criteria, we can't just go, you've all come last. We still have to put someone first. So I would encourage people to look at photos from more than one show. So they're trying to get a bit of a fit. So within a federation. Just to look at, you know, one from the PMBA and one from NABA, and one that's perhaps not helpful. But if you want to come and compete with the UKDFBA, look at photos from more than one show. And you know, if you're going to compete in bikini, look at who the winners from a variety of shows, especially the final. And that goes for any federation, because at the finals, whoever wins there probably does match the criteria, because they've had to get through some qualifiers and then they've had to beat some other people who've also got through qualifiers. So you're matching the criteria. So if you consider the published rules and regulations, which are normally there, like we say, and a little bit of research, then that should help you. When coaches say, I don't know what the judges are looking for, you should sack them. Because
good point, Mark.
You're paying them. So
you're paying for a service.
If the coach says to you, I can get you ready for PMBA, or they probably, you know, if I came to you, you know, Sarah, will you be my coach? And you said to me, where do you want to compete? And I went, I want to compete at the PMBA, the Natural Olympia. And you went, okay, great, we can do that. It may be what's going through your head is, shit, I've never heard of that federation and I don't know what the PMBA Olympia is. But you'll want the client, you'll go, yeah, I'll do it. But that's fine, because what you then, in my opinion, this is my opinion, as a coach then do is go away and do some work, do some research. So look at the PMBA, look at the criteria, look on some photos and go, right, now I know what they're looking for. When you say that you want to be bodybuilder in that federation, or that's what you're looking at, or physique, perhaps. Just to be clear, I've never been a physique, like board shorts, I'm not. That's the one where you might go, yeah, I'm going to look and go, you know what, Mark, I've got to be really clear with you. Looking the research I've done, you're never going to be good in the board shorts. You need to be putting trunks on and being a bodybuilder. That's where it's at. And a coach has that
due diligence, contract, isn't it?
You know, I'm not suggesting they've written it down, but that's the contract you make with an athlete. So for coaches to turn up and go, well, I don't know what the judges are looking for, then it's the wrong gig. Because if I went to a tennis coach and said, train me to play tennis, and they went, well, I would do, but I don't really know the rules, you'd be like, what? I'm going somewhere else.
Extremely relevant. I find as a coach myself, it's my due diligence as a coach, especially you mentioned briefly earlier, telling your clients how much it costs to compete. What's required, be realistic with whether they're going to be competitive as well. That's something that can be quite hard, I guess, as a coach, but you've got to help manage expectations for your clients. You know, there's no point in blowing smoke up someone's arse and saying, yeah, you're going to go in and win, or off the back of a show where they haven't placed when they weren't competitive to go, well, that's not fair. You know, I've heard all this sort of
thing. You should have won. 9 times out of 10, if you say you should have won, I'd also be sacking the coach. Because, and especially if they've come really low down. If you've come second, then maybe you could have won. Not necessarily should have won, but could have won. It could have gone the other way. Sometimes. Not, you know, sometimes it's a slam dunk. But if you've come 5th or 6th, then there's no way should you have won. in my opinion. I mean, it's a hypothetical show, but there's just no way. You can't be that close to the criteria, and you can't be closer to the criteria than the 5 people who've beaten you. You're just too far down the ranking. Yeah. So I think the job, in my opinion, of the coach at that point is to coach. And I see too much where coaches just tell people what to do. And in my opinion, that's not coaching. But at that point, it's about coaching. It's about helping the person understand. It's about perhaps resetting what their goals or objectives are. It might be about changing class. Yeah, because it might be that that's what went wrong. Or it might be about not stepping on stage again 6 months later or 12 months later. Because they've basically gone, I enjoy the gym. I want to compete. I've been training for 3 months and I thought this would be great. And they've enjoyed it or they haven't enjoyed it. But then there comes a point where, as a judge, I don't care. How close are you to the criteria? And with 9 months training under your belt, if you want to be if you want to be a middleweight bodywork builder, it's a tough gig. There's exceptions. There's people who've got musculature that's been, let's keep picking on the gymnasts. The genetics who turns to bodybuilding often is going to be good. Mitch, who competes with us, was a gymnast, got his pro card with the UKDFBA, PMBA, came from gymnastics, and he's got that flow about his physique. You can tell. So it's not to say you can't be good quickly, but it's not easy.
And I find also as well as a coach myself, I've got a client in particular that she got judges feedback, which was super cool, because it was, you need more muscle mass and you need more condition. And I know she won't mind me talking about it.
Did that surprise you? So it's a bodybuilding show and she needed more size. She needed to be bigger and harder. It's like cheap feedback.
I mean, when we looked, she was with a different coach and transitioned away from that. And I took her on she was just going into off season, and I had a truthful chat with her, and I said, if you want to respond to the judges' feedback that you got and you want to be competitive, this is what they said. And for me, I could have easily gone, right, let's go into another prep, because then I can take your money and we can do another prep, and you can just maybe not place again, or we can respond to judges' feedback. And I say to Vic, trust me, let's commit to a longer off season. Let's come back competitive and better. She trusts me and we're doing that. But it is, I don't know how coaches do it where they're not truthful with their clients, and, you just take the money, and whether they place or not, you don't care.
No, I mean, one of the most accomplished coaches, one of the most accomplished coaches I know is AJ Morris.
Yeah.
And I spent time with AJ. I've shared rooms with him more than once when we've been abroad competing.
Yeah.
And I first shared a room with him quite a while ago now. I don't know, COVID kind of gives you that time warp, doesn't it? It must be 4 or 5 years ago. And he was just getting going with coaching. And I very much kind of observed his behaviors as a young person running a business, coaching. And I was like, wow, you've got this sorted, because you've got, compartmentalized in terms of working and getting it done. But the thing that I observed that I thought was the best was that realism with his clients. And not being afraid to put weight on, not being afraid to take a longer prep, not being afraid to take a year off, not being afraid to tell people they're in the wrong class. And it's not about upsetting people. It's about keeping people happy, because people want to be competitive and they want to do well most of the time. If you take away that we've said earlier, I just want to lose weight, but people who step on stage mainly want to win. So to get them happy, they need to understand whether this is going to be 2-year intermission, or whether this is going to be you can't be physique, you have to be bodybuilding, because that's how you're put together, and you've spent too long being a power lifter or whatever.
For sure.
And vice versa. You probably should be grateful that physique now exists, or that classic now exists, because you just haven't really, you've been training for 5 years and you just are still
just not there.
Not there. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I've observed with him. So you mentioned it as well. I think for the coaches who take that, and you may lose some clients.
Yes. Yeah.
But again, speaking to what I observed with AJ, he's got a lot of clients now. And where's that come from? That
from being truthful,
from being a coach that people can rely on. And I'm sure that's what you do with your clients as well from the conversations we've had.
Yeah, it's just so important to me that, you know, if someone comes to me with a goal, that I'm realistic with them. I think that probably from my own experience to a certain degree of going into the sport very, very naive, like I touched on earlier, and thinking, you know, oh, you know, the judges are going to look and I'm going to win, and you know, and then it's 34, 35 girls standing there. It's like, oh, we all look the same. And you know, that realism to what actually it's like to compete, what it's like to prep, and I've taken that as sort of a personal thing, to be very upfront, you know. And if it's, say, you've got to bring more condition, we can get that condition, but this is what you've got to do to get that condition. And we know, we've touched on this today, you know, it's pretty extreme what you do. I don't know if you've had it from off the back of some preps. You look back and you think, bloody hell, how did I do that? It's just, it's crazy.
But yeah,
you do it.
Yeah, you got. I mean, you're still here. You're still competing, and obviously something about it, you know, bit you. I did whatever it works out to be. 22 years of competing, not every year, but you know, 2013 I did 5 shows. And
madness,
and to the untrained eye, madness. That's why, you know, when 2013 was my last show, like I say, or my last season. That's for me why those international events were always the ones I enjoyed the most, because you travel as a team. You go from being an individual turning up with
your outfit,
partner or whatever, to suddenly an international event where you've got people around you, and it is a different gig.
Yeah, it's when you spoke about international earlier, you know, for me, when I qualified at Rhinos for WABA Miss Universe, it was such a, like, I just thought I can't qualify for that, and then competed in Mexico, and it was like, what the hell, you know, you look around in the accommodation and everyone's got their different outfits for their country, and you know, everyone's in these huddles, and it's, you know, it's a solo endeavor a lot of the time, this sport. But then when you can be around a team and you can share that success of even getting the chance to compete internationally, like you say there, it changes the ball game completely. And that element of pride you spoke about earlier, you know, you're representing your country. It's quite phenomenal.
You know, always once you do that, the standard goes up. You know, so it does get tougher. But I think it's also just worth, especially if, you know, other people listening to this, that's not possible for everybody. It just isn't, because what we're talking about now is the right time and the right place and the right physique figure. So what I mean by that is you've got to be good, but you've also, the dice have got to fall right, because you've got to win in this forced ranking situation. You know, I've been beaten by people before who are better than me, and they're always going to be better than me. I could compete against them every year, forever and ever and ever, and I'll always come second. And then on the year when they don't come, I'll come first. You know, and
then you compete internationally,
and then and you eat the benefits. But then equally, there are some people who are, you know, are always going to work really hard, and they're going to be great, and they are going to be the best they can be, but they just don't have the tools to win a class at the highest level, you know. So competing internationally is a great aspiration. I think it adds real credibility to a federation, because it gives you that stepping stone, and you can kind of see where people will go, and that there is progression, that there's not this glass ceiling. But like I said earlier, the flip side is that people who want to, oh, Sarah said she competed in Mexico, that sounds cracking, so I'm going to compete in, or what is it now, March? If I diet 3 till June, I can compete, and you know, maybe I can go to Mexico.
That would be great.
It might happen, but it's an ask. It's a tough ask.
I'm
not saying it can't. You know, I don't want to be that person who tells Robbie Williams, "You're never going to be famous," and or that teacher, whatever. And look at that. You know, that's not the case. There is that reality about it.
I think something that would be super cool to wrap up on as well, again, something you have touched on, and there's a bit of an undercurrent as to how important it is, the posing fitness and the importance of investing time, potentially money, for a posing coach to get you to stage. I meet a lot of people that say, you know, oh, I've watched some YouTube videos, and you know, then they're going to compete. And I try and get the importance across to have lessons if you can, and to do your posing practice. Don't miss that out of everything else that you put into it. Would you agree?
Yes. I
Yeah.
guess you probably want a little bit more, but basically, yes. I think oftentimes the fitness starts to come a little bit if people are doing cardio.
Yes.
So your actual, cardiovascular fitness goes up. That said, nothing is the same as posing. Yeah. That said, I still believe, even no matter how hard you pose practicing, everybody saw the day off they come off stage, because it puts it up that 10%.
Yes.
So there is a piece around practice. Where you get that advice from, I don't think it really matters whether you pay for it or not, as long as it's from somebody who knows. Yeah.
Yes,
And
yeah.
9 times out of 10, those people are going to charge you money, but not always.
Yeah.
But I think you need to be cognizant, not you. I think one needs to be cognizant of that, because I get asked
That time on stage, especially you may be only doing one show, and when people are backstage and they're like, oh, I don't want to do this, I don't know why I've done this, it's so hard, I just want this over. I'm like, please don't do that, please. Enjoy that time, because it goes so quickly as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
From an athlete point of view, it's like, whoa. And from a judge's point of view, like you said earlier, you don't remember people as per se on stage, because it is like a conveyor belt at times, isn't it? So a very relevant point, if you're in the classes that are doing the performance element, let the judges do their thing, entertain, enjoy your moment.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
And I always say, try and have some fun.
Yeah, because like I said earlier, if you're not having fun, really find something else to do at the weekend.
Yeah, for sure. So if anyone did want to reach out to you, or follow you on Instagram, I know you said social media you don't do so much on it, but if anyone wanted to have a look at your profile, is it Instagram's the best place, would you say? Or have you got things on your web?
On Facebook.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because I'm that age. Apparently it's only old people that use Facebook now. I'm on both. Mark Oakes with an E, Oakes. If you search Natural 8, you find it as well. And on Instagram, I think I am natural_oak. Or failing that, you can always get me on Instagram at UKDFBA.
Yeah, cool. So I mean, there may be listeners that are considering your federation, or go, I do get people listening that haven't competed before, so of course hearing your standpoint from your federation would be super cool if they're inspired by that. So if anyone has listened and you resonate, or you get something from this episode, please do share it on Instagram, or tell all your friends about it, because we want to spread the word. And thank you so much for your time, Mark. I really do appreciate it.
I've enjoyed the conversation, Sarah. It's nice to see you again. Glad to see you still competing and still living it large after all these years.
Oh, I know. Thank you so much, mate. I'll speak to you soon.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.